Yes.
My name is Jeff Beeson, and we will be doing our post-observation for my iEvaluate class, and this is Maria Jacobus. I observed her last week in her American History 9 class, and I appreciate you agreeing to do this, and just going to ask you some questions now about your lesson. What did you observe during your lesson with your students, in which I thought your lesson went very well, by the way?
Well, thank you. This is actually the first time that we've done a class discussion or a notes situation in that particular format. I've been running it all day, and it actually been working really well. With such a small class, I saw the opportunity to try and get them to work collectively together as a class. We had several students that were gone on Friday, and each one of them, I think, handled as well as they could the task of putting together a set of notes and then verbally relaying that to the rest of the class so that they could write down the important main ideas and information and facts and things like that for that particular section in the book. And I thought they did a great job. We were able to finish that up today, and it went really well.
Good. Yeah, I kind of noticed in your lesson you kind of shifted to somewhat of a mini lesson and teaching them a little bit about taking effective notes for, doing that. How do you feel the students are learning how to take effective notes now?
I think they're starting to get the hang of it. Yeah, I think the more and more we do it, the more comfortable they're going to be. I think it's a skill that not only is going to serve them well here, but obviously in other classes as well, especially like in science and in pretty much any class. If you have to take notes, you have to be able to develop your style. You have to be able to get the important information written down, both from a situation where you have to listen and just take them from the auditory, but then also like a lot of teachers will use overhead too. So I think the more we do it, the more comfortable they're becoming.
Now, is this the first time you've done an activity like this?
This particular situation, yes. This is the first time we've done it this way. We've done other situations where we've taken notes in different formats, or they've worked on them on their own, or I've led them through. So this is the first time they've had to work with each other collaboratively to get notes for the section.
Okay, good. How do you determine if the strategy like this, like the jigsaw, went well?
Well, observation is a big part of it. As I was looking around the room, I was kind of, looking at what they were writing down for themselves on their paper for the particular section that they had, that they were responsible for. And it looked like they were doing a really good job. What I was reading was appropriate. They were getting, and they're getting better at this the more we do it, figuring out what the main ideas are, the important points and facts that they need to have written down. And they were all doing a really good job of that. I had a couple students who struggled a little bit, but that's something that they've struggled with all year, and it is a deficit for a couple of those kids. And that's just a lack of, reading level and writing level that they came into the class with. So that is something that we're trying to work with and get them brought up a little bit closer. But then when they were sharing out the information that they had, I thought they did a really good job of verbalizing that information to the rest of the class and sticking to the objectives that I had stated for them and relaying that to the kids. And, I thought they were really respectful of each other as well.
I noticed there were a couple of times where you kind of added on or prompted the kids to go into more detail. Was that felt like they weren't given the right information or weren't going into enough detail about that?
Well, it was just a matter of this class. I've got a lot of kids who are kind of on the lower end academically, and so the prompting is a little more appropriate for this particular class versus maybe the other sections that I have where I really didn't have to say hardly anything at all. They did a really great job of hitting all the main points. With this particular group, there are certain things that as I've gone through the reading that I know they need to have in order to understand the bigger picture, and so I would interject that information to kind of keep them on track, to make sure that we're piecing together step by step why certain things happened or how we got from one thing to another.
Okay. What indicators will students give you that they have learned the material?
We've had quizzes throughout the chapter. We've done section review questions, so I obviously look at the scores on that. Pay attention to the class discussions that we had. Are they able to kind of verbally piece together the information that we've had? We've got a test coming up on Friday, so that'll be a good indicator as well. We are going to be working on a chapter review here in class, and so that's going to be huge as to whether or not I keep that test on Friday or if I push it back a little bit if we need to spend more time on some of the information. So all of those kind of indicate to me it's kind of a progressive kind of progress monitoring all the way through to make sure that they've gotten the info.
Okay, good. In this jigsaw activity, what other roles could have been assigned in order to get more participation?
Well, every single one of them was responsible for a particular part. Each one of them had to share out with the class. We could have done a situation where maybe we didn't come together as a class. I could have gone table by table, individual by individual. I could have had them come up, like some classes, they would come up to the front of the room, present their information to the class. We could have pulled the overhead down, could have had kids typing things. Maybe I assigned somebody to type a summary of what was being discussed from each group or from each person to kind of keep a running tally in case somebody needed to refer to it. I could have done things that way. Could have had somebody go through the book and assign particular things instead of me doing it. Those are things maybe if we do this activity again that I could try with a couple of different sections that I think maybe could handle that.
I know you talked a little bit just about technology there. Are there ways you could have utilized technology?
Well, we could have taken the computers and created a Google Docs and had the entire class add in their information on Google Docs. Everybody would have had a running tally of it. They could have added in their information. Not only could we then have done it that way, but then they also could have discussed with the class as they were adding on and go group by group or pair by pair, even individual by individual, depending on how many kids were in the class. I've got a couple sections that are pretty small. So we could have done things that way too. And again, that may be something that I'll want to do in the future if we do this activity again.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What concerns do you have about the students who presented the notes to the other students in the class? Is there anything that, by doing that lesson, are there any concerns that maybe the kids didn't have enough time to write down the information?
Well, okay, that is something that I am going to be checking. We finished it up today, and so tomorrow at the beginning of class, especially with this particular section, I am going to go around with the kids and see what they wrote down. I'll also have them pair up with somebody and kind of verbally exchange what they wrote down, what they got out of section 4 that way too, just to double check to make sure everything is there that's supposed to be there.
Okay.
I don't want to have them turn it in because we do have the test coming up and I want them to have something they can study for that particular topic.
Mm-hmm. Did you see any other concerns with the lesson once you were done that you could have probably done differently or would have been more successful, I guess, at the time?
With that particular group, I really feel like, I did the best I could, especially with the kids that are in that mix. If I'd wanted to, we could have broken it up into maybe three groups, had them work collectively together. Somebody could have been in charge of writing things down. Somebody could have, or you could have had 2 or 3 kids that would work together, sharing things out. But I think for the situation, I think it worked out about as good as I could hope for.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything you could have done in order to get into the jigsaw activity faster?
Probably, but I couldn't tell you what that is right now.
You usually have how many kids?
That particular group has 18 kids, but I had 4 that were gone that day,
Mm-hmm.
so I only had 14 kids that day.
Yeah. So possibly knowing that they're going to be gone, obviously you could have the tables maybe already together.
I could have.
No,
That would have,
no.
yeah, I definitely could have done it that way. That's kind of difficult though, going from my 5th hour class, which is Western Civ, which is, I have 27 kids in that class,
Yeah.
so it's all taken up, and it's a very lively bunch anyway, so you want to try and keep classroom management as orderly as possible. With that particular group, I definitely, if I had known that there were going to be that many kids gone, definitely would have set the tables up ahead of time. We would have just gone right into it right after bell work without having to take the time to move things around.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned your bell work. You could tell the kids' expectations or guidelines were there from day one because they came in, they were quiet, got their stuff in, put that in the box, and then you were walking around noticing kind of the things they were doing. So
yeah.
I thought that was key there.
Thank you.
How could you set up your jigsaw activity differently to get more students involved?
You just asked me that.
Is there anything you could have done differently with that though?
With the activity itself?
Yeah.
I could have paired them up, I could have had them, work collaboratively with somebody so that it's not just one kid talking at a time. Could have been pairs, it could have been threesomes. Could have been a situation where maybe I ask questions and, we do a question and answer thing, every once in a while interjected into that as well. Take a quick stop, have a quick discussion, get kids involved that way too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How did you decide what to highlight in the reading or your learning for the students?
I looked at the overall context of the chapter. I looked at how the section evolved from the growing conflict between the upper and lower classes, how that evolves into conflicts between management and their workers, the evolution of unions. And I just looked at kind of what the highlight was to kind of follow along that timeline. What are the most key elements that they need to know in order to understand that growing conflict between those two groups, and then how do the unions fit into that? That was my objective for Friday, that they understand that. So I just stuck to the key dates and the events and the people that were involved.
And I noticed you touched a little bit on the vocab and have them not to talk about that, because I know most of the times when it's highlighted in bold in a book, that's the first thing I want to talk about. But what activities have you done, or what have you done with vocab prior to this that the kids have that down, I guess?
Oh, we spent an entire day creating vocab lists and looking at how those fit into the larger context of the section. What was the role of the scabs? What was the role of the anarchists? What are the different types of monopolies and trusts that were being formed, and who were the men that were responsible for that? Guys like Rockefeller and Carnegie. And we took not just the word or the event or the person and what the identify and the definition was, but then how does that fit into the overall context? Reading obviously is paramount before you do that. So, but a lot of them did a good job with that too. So
good. I noticed you encouraging a lot of kids when they were either talking or giving an answer. What results do you feel you got when you encourage students with positive comments?
And with these kids especially, I think a lot of them are hesitant because of their academic level, because of their ability. I think they're hesitant to participate. They don't want to shine the spotlight on themselves. But in a small class like this, I think it's a great opportunity for them to do just that. As much encouragement as I can give them, I think brings them out of their shell a little bit, makes them more comfortable in the classroom. And the more comfortable you can make a student, the better they're going to learn. So the more positive reinforcement I can give them, I think the better off they're going to be.
Mm-hmm. No, that was good. And there were a couple kids who I think were kind of shy to say anything when you gave some comments. I think that probably boosted their self-confidence, and they were more happy to talk a little more.
Definitely have some shy flowers in this classroom, yes.
Do you feel the students truly understand the concept of organized labor? And how do you...
I hope so.
How do you know that, I guess, based off your
well,
lesson and what you're doing?
Some of our discussions tomorrow, I'm definitely going to have a better feel for that. Also, when we work on the chapter review tomorrow here in class, again, that'll be another element into whether or not I feel like we understand this. A lot of it's going to be, me asking questions when we do test reviews here in class. I've got a couple of activities that we're going to do to see what has stuck and what hasn't. And so hopefully before the chapter test, I'll have a pretty good picture of whether or not they're ready for that test or not. I'm hoping that they are. I'm hoping I can keep it on Friday, but if not, I can push it back a day.
Okay. Well, good. Those are all the questions I have for you, so I appreciate taking the time to talk to me and obviously complete this assignment, but as well as do the observation. And we'll be getting together probably later this week to finish up setting our goal for our next observation moving forward. So
okay, cool.
Thank you very much.
You betcha.
How was that, Miss Newman?
Okay, if I could stop it.